Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. This is the ninth webinar of local and regional governments towards COP15, presented by ICLEI Local Governments of Sustainability in its capacity as the focal point of local governments and municipal authorities constituency. Thank you very much for joining us in this around 1 hour. Today's webinar will be joined by our colleague Jordan Harris from the incoming COP25 presidency. Those who have been familiar with our webinars, we also have a session in the morning session. Today is 4 o'clock in Germany, but we had another round, and that one was joined by Shea O'Neill from the Global Covenant of Mayors. That's great pleasure for us to have both of them joining us. A couple of housekeeping notes before we go to the agenda of today's webinar. This webinar is recorded, and this will be both the presentation and the recording will be uploaded on the web, and you will be able to share afterwards and then tomorrow onwards. Those who are attending, they are unmuted. Sorry, they are muted in order to make sure there is a smooth flow of the session. And anytime you can type questions, and you can also raise your hand, but we prefer to have this at the end of the presentation, which will be lasting around 25 or 30 minutes. And we will make sure there is definitely enough time for Q&A, so that during this 1 hour we will be able to interact as much as possible. I think I didn't introduce myself. My name is Yunus Arikan. I'm the Director of Global Advocacy and also the focal point of LGMA. And I will be both presenting this session, but also moderate in terms of Q&A sessions. Once again, welcome to all. In today's agenda, for those who have been familiar, this is a monthly webinar that we're running, and in every monthly webinar we are trying to review the starting point from the beginning of the year and where we are, but also try to prioritize the updates from the last webinar, which was this time in the 21st of August. Therefore, we will prioritize those latest updates. We will spend some time on the Climate Action Summit. This is one of the priorities, especially considering the proximity, which is starting 2 days later onwards. And then we will have some time to go through towards the agenda for COP25, and that is the moment where our colleague Jordan will particularly be contributing, in particular how the presidency, incoming presidency, is preparing with a specific focus on local and regional governments, both globally and regionally, and the Latin American Caribbean. So it will be interesting. Without further ado, let me start our introductory slides. Those who are familiar with the climate processes, it's every year hosted by a national government who is the host of the COP of the previous year. So the role of this presidency is that they take care of the political leadership in terms of the implementation of the decisions adopted at the summit they hosted the year before. And the incoming presidency, who is hosting the COP on that year, is prepared to host the venue, physically host the event, but also introduce their political priorities and expectations. So it is a transition, and every year in between, the negotiators are meeting in Bonn in a technical session in media review. That is the story of the COPs. And in terms of the names, we have the presidents. In the case of Polish, which is the current president, is led by the Minister of Energy State Secretary, Mr. Michał Kurtyka. And in the incoming presidency from Chile is the Minister of Environment Ministry of Environment, Ms. Carolina Schmidt. And those who are familiar, since the Paris Agreement in force, there is a new position called Climate Action Champions, and in the Polish delegation, in the Polish presidency, this is led by Thomas Khrushchev as a special envoy, and we have Mr. Gonzalo Munoz as the high-level champion from the Chilean side. Let's recap. When we start the year 2019, our biggest achievement was the legacy of 2018, the Talanoa dialogues, which was the opportunity for all the stakeholders to have a discussion on the Paris Agreement at home that was an opportunity for any city in the world to discuss with their national governments. This was a success of the advocacy of the local and regional governments as well. Original proposal of this Talanoa dialogues was presumably to be a one-off event in a COP in Katowice, but this turned out to be a year-round mobilization, and we hosted 60 sessions in 40 countries, and we made the case of connecting the urban and climate agenda and also engage local and regional governments. And that's why we're building on our priorities of this year, because there is a decision where the countries, national governments are invited to revise their NDCs based on the experience of the Talanoa dialogues. And we hope that this year's mobilization will help us to achieve that. So as we said, it's an annual process, 25th, obviously. Every year we contribute into the process by, in three main work streams. We showcase as local and regional governments our achievements, our success stories, through the reporting platforms, but also from events and summits that are hosted by local and regional governments and their networks. We contributed to consultations, in particular the workshops that is taking place year-round, and also the Marrakesh Partnership thematic groups. And we also contribute to decision-making in the sense that, yes, final decision is made by the negotiators of the national governments, but we present our views on the negotiation agendas by submissions, by verbal and written contributions, and we also interact with the national governments, especially those who are friendly to the agenda of local and regional governments. This was originally called as Friends of Cities. Since June 2019, this is revised, elevated to the UNFCCC Friends of Multi-Level Action. And for this year, we are hoping to get a direct engagement in the NDC process. We will focus on local climate finance, subnational finance, and we will raise our ambition, and this is the UN Climate Action Summit as well. Chilean government, in terms of their presidency, they have highlighted at the beginning of the year 7 priorities. It was a diverse compilation of topics, but after the consultations in June in Bonn, they have updated their priorities and they have included cities as a special agenda, and that's what we will hear from Jordan in the next couple of minutes in more details. That is why we are so excited with the Chilean COP. For those who are familiar, every Latin American COP is always productive for us. This is the continent which is the most urbanized. In Cancun in 2010, in Lima in 2014, there was always positive outcomes, COP decisions. So we're excited for the Chilean COP as well. Throughout the year, we mobilize our constituency with a diverse number of and scope of events. These are mainly grouped in 3 main categories. We have our own summits, the LGMA as our own meetings, like Urban 20, like R20 meetings in this year in Vienna again. We will have in the next couple of weeks after the climate summit in October, the C40 World Congress, which is every 2 years, and in November the UCLG World Congress will come up. In October we will also go to the Seoul Mayors Forum, and over these years we also had hosted Resident Cities Congress. So it's around 15 or so events taking place throughout the year. The UNFCCC regular negotiation agenda items, we had participated in the regional climate weeks as well, and especially this year was very busy because in the other UN fora, there's important events like Environment Assembly and Habitat Assembly in Nairobi in March and April, March and May. There were negotiations on the high-level political forum. We will touch upon the desertification COP, and biodiversity COP is also advancing aggressively. And throughout this mobilization, during the year, the one thing that came up was the global climate mobilization, especially led by the youth, especially after the mobilization towards the European Parliament elections. This expanded its level to not just a youth or students, but now there's a big call for all the actors of the society to step up and demonstrate that we should change our business as usual and act in the era of climate emergency. And I will touch upon that, how local and regional governments are contributing to that as well. Regional Climate Weeks was the one in March was for Africa in Salvador. That was one of the unique sessions. There had been some numeric, really historic achievement, because This was the first time a regional climate week was co-hosted by a city. You remember there was a back and forth with the Brazilian government, originally the cancellation, but city of Salvador has particularly asked to make this happen, and it was really a leadership from their side. Literally, they also co-hosted in their own city hall. That was again another unique atmosphere that is showing how we can contribute to the global and regional and national events. In Salvador, we had the first spatial NDC dialogue with the subnational governments. There was a regional mobilization from worldwide, as well as from the region, from Brazil, from other countries of the world, and networks were there as well. There were numerous side events on mobility, buildings, and climate action at the city level. And this was again the first time a mayor's panel was held in the margins of the Regional Climate Week. Whereas in Bangkok, which was a couple of weeks afterwards, early September, there was a regional climate week for Asia Pacific, but this was hosted in the UNESCO, the premises of the UN Regional Commission. The city of Bangkok was not as actively involved as Salvador. The uniqueness of that session in Bangkok was that there was another NDC dialogue with the national governments, but this time subnationals were also joined by other stakeholders like private sector and civil society. And at the high level session of this Bangkok session, the voice of local and regional governments were conveyed by the speakers from ICLEI, the Deputy Regional Director of South Asia. So that was additional message that we are in wherever there's a negotiation or there's a discussion on climate, there are local and regional governments contributing to this process. This year was the moment where we elevate the synergy between the three very important conventions on biodiversity, on nature, desertification and land use, and climate change. We know there was a release of an IPCC report on land. This was supported by the first the UN COP of the Desertification Secretariat in India, and the uniqueness of that was the first time there was a local and regional governments day hosted along the margins. It brought together from 4 different continents more than 25 mayors and local leaders out of a 100 participant list, with including national governments and UN agencies. The good thing is that while we addressed the synergy between land, food, biodiversity, and climate in this COP, there was a concrete outcome. The Delhi Declaration had a particular paragraph 10, which refers to the role of local governments in land neutrality targets, but also food and security and migration policies. So that is bringing us closer to the climate debate again. In end of August, there was in Nairobi the first round of negotiations of the new framework in the post 2020 phase for biodiversity. This was held in Nairobi, and that was the moment where the Chinese host of the COP in 2020 October in Kunming, they announced the theme of the biodiversity COP. This is particularly ambitious. It's ecological civilization. This is consistent with our expectation. Local and regional governments were participating in the biodiversity agenda since 2008, and particularly we are active there because there is a COP decision for cities and subnations on biodiversity agenda. And in the last COP in 2018 in Sharm el-Sheikh, we were recommending that the COP in China should be giving the momentum as if the Paris COP in climate has given to the climate agenda. So the COP in China should be the Paris moment for biodiversity. So this vision, ecological civilization, and additional point, which is it's not a just 2030 target because the current targets are 2020. This summit is aiming to make a vision for 2050, which is again in line with the Paris vision. Therefore, we are excited that this convergence of these agendas will help each other. Our contribution to the biodiversity negotiations were led by ICLEI Cities Biodiversity Center, as well as Advisory Committee of Subnational Governments, where Secretariat is hosted by the Regions for Sustainable Development. And Jean Lemire, the special envoy from Quebec, and Kobe Brandt was active there. And ahead of this meeting, we also announced Mayor of Montreal as the special global ambassador of local governments, ICLEI, for the biodiversity agenda. And the good news is that we are hoping to have Mayor Plante joining us at COP25 in Chile as well. Just last week, we had the UN Standing Committee on Climate Finance, a subsidiary body or a body of the UN climate negotiations, had its annual forum, and this year it was focusing on climate finance and cities. That was a unique opportunity because we are saying that we are recognized in the Paris Agreement, we are engaged with Talanoa and NDCs, and the missing element was the empowerment, the resources mobilization for cities. So this meeting was particularly important as the perfect timing for that. The outcome of this meeting will directly feed into the COP. So that will be a negotiation item. There will be conclusions, and we are very hopeful that connecting this conference as well as the Climate Action Summit could give us a huge, powerful input to make sure our actions are strengthened with additional resources. ICLEI and C40 are acting as focal points, but at this meeting we had participation from FMDV, R20, CCFLA, Global Covenant, UN Habitat, as well as diverse cities representatives. So it was a good demonstration of our strength on this topic. 20th of September, global climate strike. As we said, it's a global mobilization, and our local governments are also supporting in more concrete terms. City of Bonn and ICLEI had announced that as employers, they will enable their employees, staff, to participate in the strike in a unique model. You know, strikes are usually not very favorable by the employers, but this was a unique moment, and the ICLEI staff and City of Bonn staff are with the administrative procedures are able to attend this global climate strike. And this picture that you see is a scene from the window of the service department of the City of Bonn, which says that the city is participating to the global climate strike. If we are hoping such engagement could be also inspirational for other cities worldwide, so that the youth and the students are not alone, that their local governments are behind them, and that they also ask for ambitious action that is consistent with climate emergency era. Yesterday, NASCA, the website of the UN Climate Change Secretariat, has been revised and updated. It turns into a global climate action portal. ICLEI was contributing into this process since the beginning. Our climate registry, carbon climate registry, is providing data inputs to this process. Since then, this was launched in 2014 at the Lima COP. Now there's a big diversity of stakeholders, cities, regions, private sector. So you can see a diversity of actions listed here, and we are very proud that our actions are also reported here. This was supposed to, as we said before, our colleagues from the Global Covenant of Mayors were supposed to present this, but they are now on the air. They're literally going to New York for the summit. Just to recap, the summit is organized by the UN Secretary General. The way it is designed is that it has 9 work streams. One of them is dedicated for infrastructure, cities, and local action. Each of these 9 groups are led by several countries. In the case of our ICLA track, the co-leads are Kenya and Turkey. And here you can see Chile leading the mitigation strategy. And across the other agendas, there is already a number of interactions as well. For those who have not heard before, there is a flagship report that will set the scene in terms of how national governments can support local action and vice versa, how local governments contribute to the national ambition. That will be a brand new report coming up. It is embargoed until tomorrow, but this will introduce very key messages that there is a strong economic, financial, and social benefit, and also environmental benefits, and practically it is doable, and there is almost no excuse not to ensure a multi-level climate action is needed and doable in the era of climate emergency. For those of these 9 working areas, you will be hearing more in the next couple of days, but there are more initiatives coming up. In the ICLA track, there are mainly cross-sectoral and sectoral initiatives. Sectoral initiatives focus on buildings, transport, and urban resilience, especially for the urban poor. There are cross-cutting initiatives like Toolkit for Climate Emergency, an initiative for African cities, and then leadership for urban climate investments. These will be our outputs to the process, and they will be presented as appropriate throughout the summit and hopefully be implemented further on. In the rest of the other tracks, there's also additional relevant initiatives on health, on energy, but more updates will come soon because this is still, some of them are still under negotiations, and official announcements has to come from UN Secretary General's office. In terms of what we're expecting in Climate Week, this will start with Saturday and Sunday. The action tracks are presenting their diversity of outputs. On Monday will be the main summit. That is the day where heads of state will announce their response to this climate action summit, but there will be numerous local and regional leaders in its entirety as a subnational leaders will be there presenting their initiatives and presenting their contributions. During the day, there will be also an event of New York City Mayor's Office at the Columbia University. On Tuesday, there will be the SDG Summit, and that is the moment where local and regional governments forum will also be held. That is coordinated by our partner UCLG, and we as ICLEI and other rest of the networks will be there. Throughout the rest of the week, there will be several other events, mainly on finance. But this is an overview of the expected events in New York. Very concretely, on Saturday, there will be an additional session of 3 hours, which will focus on subnational mobilization, nature-based solutions, and finance. Meanwhile, on Sunday, there will be a whole ICLA track on the morning. Then will be followed by the launch of the Coalition for Urban Transitions report. Meanwhile, there will be additional communication coming from the GCOM, especially on Amazon Cities Pact, and also toolkit for climate emergency, how local and regional governments can benefit from that mobilization. Our basic perspective is that the climate neutrality, which is a vision in the Paris Agreement, as well as a multi-level perspective, can be politically be implemented if there are more and more cities adopting climate emergencies in their councils. So these two processes, one legal and one moral and political messages, can be the elements we can be using for more ambitious action at the subnational level. Throughout this climate summit preparations, the Global Covenant of Mayors and partners around that have conveyed their expectation to this UNSG office. In particular, our vision that our hope is that the summit gives more clarity about how local and regional governments are contributing to the NDCs in terms of both commitments but also actions. But we would also have asked for additional prioritization of our visibility, which definitely have showed up, and our hope for a finance gap, and also connecting to the air quality as well. The official website is the UN Climate Summit website, but as of today, ICLEI already has launched its blogs. ICLEI US as the venue of the New York. They have the listed list of events and key milestones, and you can take this space. There is a blog of ICLEI World Secretariat, which makes the connection between the Climate Action Summit and the SDG Summit, in basic terms, that if we want to ensure the SDGs are delivered in time, we should make sure climate ambition has to be raised, and there's a benefit for both processes. With this, I would like to give a break to my presentation, and I'm happy to invite our colleague Jordan Harris from the incoming COP25 presidency to present an overview. He will not be necessarily limited to this day-by-day expectations of the COP, but he will take us through the overall vision and the preparation of the Chilean presidency. So Jordan, once again, thank you very much. And I'm now unmuting you so that you can take the floor.
Hello, great. Thank you very much, Yunus, for the invitation to be able to speak briefly with you all today. Greetings to everyone from Santiago de Chile. I will be brief because I know time is short, and we need to leave time for questions as well. Just as Yunus has already mentioned, subnational government is one of the priority actors for the incoming Chilean presidency of the COP25, and we are as a team now working to develop an agenda that is able to kind of follow in the tradition of Latin American COPs, to reveal the importance and the essential nature of local governments in terms of their contribution to raising ambition and implementing concrete climate actions. So we are coordinating this on 3 levels. One is a national level in Chile. Chile will be immersed in the coming months in a process to generate its own subnational agenda for climate change, which is expected to be presented during a local authority summit in the COP. At the same time, we are also making efforts to coordinate a regional process in order to coordinate between all of the relevant actors within Latin America, both municipal networks and local government networks that are more specifically aligned and have been working historically with climate change, such as ICLEI, the Global Covenant of Mayors, C40, Mercociudades, which is part of the Mercosur coalition. We're hoping to be able to coordinate efforts between these different actors in order to generate through different moments that will be occurring, events that will be occurring in the coming months, steering those efforts towards a united front that would be able to kind of generate a declaration of Latin American subnational governments to be presented during the COP. So there's different moments that are key moments that are upcoming. One of which will be a Global Covenant of Mayors Steering Committee meeting at the end of this month in Cartagena, in Colombia. Then there will be a pre-COP summit in San Jose in Costa Rica, at which there is an event being organized, a day-long event, in order to kind of continue this process of coordinating actors on a regional scale. And this is expected to culminate in also a local authority event during the COP, in which this regional Latin American local government focus can be presented, both during an event in the green zone and during a side event in the blue zone, in which we hope to be able to go into more detail in terms of some of these priority issues that Eunice has already spoken of: circular economy, finance for climate action, NDC implementation, raising ambition. So that's kind of the vision that we have from the COP25 presidency in terms of local governments, is trying to unite these different actors and to make a common front and assure that there's a space during the summit in Santiago that allows for this agenda to move forward. In addition, after the COP, we are also planning, with the support of the European Union, a regional forum in order to continue from this momentum on a regional level and develop an action plan and roadmap for implementation during the year of the Chilean COP presidency, in order to be able to provide further impetus to continue working on these issues. And finally, there's also a global process, which is something that we've been speaking very recently with ICLEI specifically about the opportunity to create a space, a side event for cities and local governments on a global scale, to be able to feed into this global event the efforts that are being made on a regional level in Latin America, but also share views and perspectives, commitments, actions, as well as proposals for how to move forward with local government coalitions, networks, and actors from across the globe. So we hope to be able to support that effort as well. I just want to say that from the COP25 presidency, this is a priority issue. We also hope to be able to communicate a subnational agenda throughout the COP. So I also encourage anyone who will be planning side events during the COP that are relevant to these issues of subnational governments to please be in touch, to please contact me directly, as we hope to be able to develop an agenda that would allow us to kind of show the series of different events organized by different actors that will be working on the issue of subnational government. So I would encourage you to make contact with us directly on that in the coming weeks and months. And yeah, we are definitely available to coordinate and to collaborate on any level in this regard. So thank you very much, Eunice. I will hand it back to you so that we can continue with the presentation.
Dear Jordan, thanks a lot for this comprehensive presentation. I'd like to add 2 points. First of all, both Chilean presidency and we are very lucky to have Jordan on board. Jordan has been familiar with the urban community with his role in the Adapt Chile for a long time. So I think that's a great asset. And we also would like to commend the Chilean presidency for this really well prepared vision, and also that's what we are seeing, that every year COP presidencies are making this agenda much more solid and long term, not just one event, but it's also a vision towards a year-round engagement. This is what we have had between in the French, in the pavilion, in the French, in the Moroccan, and then also the Fijian, but it's getting much better. So that's also something we are very excited. I remember that was what we had done in Bonn in June. We had a follow-up of the initiatives of the COP24 presidency with a special event on multi-level action. So we're excited with this both regional perspective, but also global and connected to other processes. I also would like to make a special appreciation to Jordan for today, which is a national day for Chile, and he has kindly reserved his time to join us. So that is also very appreciated. Maybe in the Q&A we can continue. Just adding on very minor points. As you know, for 2 weeks we are preparing an agenda. As we are trying to make sure there is an easiness of the events to follow in terms of logistics, but also resources, and ensuring the appropriate solidarity among the participants, and also the combination of the events. So with this year, we are aware there will be the first time Ministers of Transport meeting on the 6th of Friday. So there is this discussion how we can ensure an urban mobility concept into this around this event. We will participate in the Marrakesh partnership event. I know there's UNFCCC official side event applications are being reviewed. There are several delegations who are always hosting pavilions, and in that sense, there will be I think more announcements for different pavilions like EU, like Germany, China, the multinational development banks, or other pavilions. So we are trying to orchestrate that the events can be organized in appropriate timings, the delegations, the themes, so that we make a good outcome of our mobilization. And we will be working with, of course, on the next couple of days, especially during the Climate Action Summit. I'm sure there will be numerous interactions, official and informal, probably, that will help us to shape up the agenda much better. So very likely in the next webinar in the end of October, in the 10th webinar, we will be presenting all these outcomes, and in between, through the LGMA mailing list, we will be connecting to keep you updated as well. Here's the layout of the venue. That there is a green zone, which is in the hands of the Chilean government, and the blue zone, traditional UN area, but there will be strong connection, but several, of course, changes will occur due to registration and other topics that we're familiar with. So with this, I would like to conclude the first round. We have around 40 minutes. Use this first round. The floor is now open. I'm trying to check whether there was any questions raised or hands raised. Feel free either to take the floor or type in your questions. That's an opportunity, especially with the Chilean presidency. You can also comment or anything that we missed from your sides, so that we can improve or update. So yeah, let's give the opportunity for our participants. I see one hand raised. Jennifer Leonard from WWF One Planet City Challenge. Please, if you can directly unmute yourself, and please raise your contributions.
Hi, Eunice. Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. As always, extremely helpful, so thank you for this. I just wanted to flag that I just had a call with several WWF colleagues, including in the Scotland office, and understanding that the city of Glasgow is very keen to participate in the COP in Chile and any related events that will be happening. So I think this can be an evolving conversation with yourself, Eunice, and Jordan, etc. But they're very keen to see this COP as a bridge to what comes next, assuming we are in Glasgow next year. So just to note that, and we can keep that conversation evolving as it goes. Over.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, Jennifer. Jordan, would you like to add any point? I can contribute, but if there's anything whether you have already established any links with Glasgow or not.
No, not to my knowledge. This is, as I had mentioned before, it's a work in progress. The local government agenda here in the COP25 team. I just came onto the team actually last week, but definitely if there's interest from any local governments, please feel free to channel those kinds of communications or contacts my way, and we can see how best to fit them into the agenda or see exactly what their specific interest is in terms of participation. That's the idea is to hopefully be able to channel these kinds of interests and conversations into these different streams, as I had mentioned, one on a Latin American level and another on a more global level.
Well, from ICLEI's side, Glasgow is a long-term member of ICLEI, and when we heard that it will be hosted in Glasgow, at least that's the plan at the moment, we were very excited. So we will also be very actively supporting this process. So we are happy to make the bridge, Jordan, to you. I also would like to encourage Jennifer. If you have not met yet, Jordan, Jennifer is based in Santiago, actually. She's probably a bit shy, or maybe I shouldn't have disclosed it, but Jennifer will be also contributing, I think, in the COP this year, particularly both as WWF, but personally. So we really have a nice, very strong hand in this process. So it would be good to connect with Jennifer and WWF colleagues in the way towards COP25. I see Josephine has a question. Josephine, would you like to unmute yourself? Or did you type it already? I think you typed it already.
Hi there. Yeah, this is Josephine from ICLEI, the European Secretariat. And I was just wondering what the best process would be for you, Jordan, to be in touch. Would that be directly, or what would be preferred?
Yeah, I'm, for now, I'm definitely open for any direct contacts. There's a team that I work with in the COP25 presidency. So as things develop, we can start to maybe divvy up the streams. But for now, as far as any contacts that to be made, that can be made directly through me. Eunice, feel free also to share my email address as well in order to make direct contact that way.
Well, definitely, I think you should be. We will be happy to make that. We will also like to follow our practice over these years that the role of the LGMA focal point could help you in terms of shaping up some of those processes. We had experiences over these years that we can already present some of the experience and practices we have established so that your implementation and practical advancement of your agendas could be eased through our role there, because it's not just these people who are on this call, but there's so many colleagues. I know colleagues from China, Australia, from Japan, they're all interested to come. So that's our role as focal point, both as an institution and as a person. So definitely we will be the bridge also at the regional level. But of course, we will be happy to have Jordan be the main point of contact in terms of the overall bridge to the presidency. So that would be our work.
Yeah, great. It's good to streamline these things. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
No, absolutely, and we're very appreciative for that support, Eunice.
No, it's our pleasure, and actually it's our duty. So, Jennifer, do you have additional question? I see your point again.
No, I just was saying, hi, Jordan. We actually met in Quito, but it's a very informal statement. But I think this has been, as mentioned, extremely useful. So count WWF on board if we can support the LGMA work and certainly the work of the Chilean presidency. So yeah, just serving as a resource to you both. And this has been a very helpful call. So thank you.
Excellent.
That's
yeah,
great.
Hello, Jennifer.
Well, That's exactly the type of interesting partners WWF is traditionally in the climate context as an end goal, which is Climate Action Network, the civil society, the grassroots, but especially with the One Planet City Challenge, which was original Earth Hour City Challenge, where ICLEI was partnering both in terms of dissemination, but also data collection and reporting in the process since 2011. We have WWF OPCC now as a partner of the LGMA. There are other similar organizations, for example, CDP. Again, CDP is originally a business community, but they have cities research or cities reporting platforms. So these are partners that are evolving. That's in time. We're happy to have this diversity and cross-fertilization of institutions and stakeholders. And for many years, we have been engaging WWF in that regard. So I'm sure this year there will be particular effort, especially recalling the current champion of WWF, Manuel, who was the previous COP24, which one? COP19? COP20, COP20, exactly. 2014 as the president, and now he's an activist as a WWF. So I'm sure Manuel will help us to connect also, or to bridge many of our agendas. So definitely, we will be happy to work with you. Great. What else do we have? Any additional comments, contributions, inputs, questions, remarks? Jordan, anything you would like to add up that may be left from your presentation or inputs, or based on these questions, anything that comes to your mind?
I mean, this was a very preliminary kind of summary that I provided here. In the coming weeks, as we hope to be able to solidify several additional aspects to this agenda. There will, especially on a regional level, there will be a meeting at the end of the month now, and then also at the pre-COP first or second week of October in Costa Rica. So as this agenda continues to evolve, I think there will probably be more concrete information that can come out of it. So I think perhaps if it's possible, the next webinar, which I understand will be mid or end of October, that might be a good point to reconvene, and definitely we'll have some more updates and progress by then. So yeah, so there's not much more that I can contribute at this point. But I would say that maybe from our perspective, what the least information that we have would be on this global process. So I'm very interested to be able to continue to collaborate and coordinate with all of you, with you, Eunice, in particular, as kind of a bridge in that regard, because that would be important for us to be able to have more clarity and to integrate this more fully into the coordinating efforts that we're making from the COP25 presidency.
Excellent, and it was really nice that you mentioned about this. So especially for the regional level, the Colombia meeting is scheduled on 25th, and I know, as you mentioned, GCOM steering committee will be there. Our colleagues from C40, UCLG, FLACMA, they will be contributing to that. At the pre-COP, which is 9th to 10th of October, ICLEI Mexican Caribbean Secretariat will be there with our colleagues. In our internal ICLEI structure, we have Latin American or South American Secretariat, but also Mexican Caribbean Secretariat led by our office in Mexico. So they will be contributing to Costa Rica, and I'm very happy that they're already connected to you, and you will continue to carry the outcome from both Climate Summit and your preparations. So we are hoping that there will be additional outcomes as well. As you have seen, Jordan, we are very happy that our constituency is so diverse that we could contribute all wherever the summit goes, that there is always a city or local government, and hopefully connected to the global agenda, that we can at least follow very closely and actively. Therefore, there will definitely be rooms. I think, as I said, especially in New York, there will be several events. For example, Marrakesh Partnership will also have their consultations, several other opportunities will take place. This is a bit tricky because it's limited to the registered participants. There are those who have access to UN. So some of those partners may not be easily accessing, but we will try to communicate both, of course, through the social media, but also with our mailing list. Maybe not immediately, but maybe after wrap up from the New York summit, we can have another updates on and also let's say key outcomes or key messages. There will be additional probably updates on the side events from UNFCCC side. Probably in a couple of days there will be also information about the Blue Zone delegation quotas. So I'm expecting that after September, once the climate summit is over, things will speed up. We also know at the C40 summit in Copenhagen and the UCLG World Congress in Durban, there will be moments for us to get together, to encourage dialogue and collaboration, and to convey outcomes from these summits, as well as Seoul Mayor's Forum in October, end of October, so that our roadmap towards Chile is clear and well structured, and then we will follow up onwards. I think that was good so far. I always say that we don't have to wait until the end of the hour. Any minute is helpful for us to save, because nowadays everybody is hectic with rushing from one webinar to another or one call from another one. So if there is no more further interventions or inputs, I suggest we close this session so that we will stay in touch furthermore. And we would wish you the best of a nice day, evening, or afternoon. And once again, thanks for Jordan, also Shea, who was with us in the morning, and thanks for your participation as well.
No problem. No, thanks for the opportunity, and looking forward to continuing collaboration into the future.
Excellent, excellent. For those who are familiar, the rest of the presentation, which will be available, you can find the previous some key updates, like link to our COP24 report, the Paris Agreement, why it is important because of our key achievements in terms of legal recognition and outcome from Katowice, the interventions we had in the latest meetings in June, including the agendas we had in this picture here. For example, you can see in the corner the representative of the Chilean delegation, Nicolas, was with us at the high-level dinner hosted by the mayor of Bonn, and the high-level event we had with the COP24 presidency and the special event. These are all giving us the courage. The IPCC research agenda that was adopted again this year was a more political but also technical justification of our engagement. There is a release of the Global Task Force report on SDGs with a specific chapter on climate change, SDG 13, coordinated by C40 with inputs from our regions for ICLEI and UCLG and other networks. Climate emergency will come soon, very prominently, with GCOM toolkit coming up, and we are already discussing with Australian colleagues. Australia was the birth of the climate emergency process. Darabin, chair of ICLEI Oceania Council, was the first city who adopted an emergency, and I just yesterday been confirmed that we will have their participation to Chile. That's an exciting moment for us. So we are well advanced, and we are confident that we will contribute to the success of Chilean COP. And with this, and wish you the best again. Take care. Have a nice time. Bye-bye.